The golden age of piracy began after the War of Spanish Succession, which the War of Spanish Succession was a large conflict that was caused after the heirless King of Spain, Charles II, the last of the Spanish Habsburgs, died. The war was fought because the House of Bourbon and the House of Habsburg couldn't decide which of them would control the massive Spanish Empire, because obviously one wasn't just going to give up an empire that controlled almost all of the Americas. Once the British got involved, they paid various sailors to sink Spanish ships, and after the war was over, those people decided they didn't want to go do some boring job for the rest of their life, so they kept their ships and became pirates. Fortunately for pirates, the Caribbean happened to see a lot of valuables going through the sea, ripe for the plundering thanks to the spike in trade in the Caribbean. A place in the Caribbean in particular saw a lot of pirates. Nassau was essentially the capital of pirates, which it kind of was, because it was the largest stronghold of pirates in the very, very unofficial Republic of Pirates. This republic had members that you might have heard of at least once. Blackbeard, Stede Bonnet, or also known as the Gentleman Pirate, Benjamin Hornigle, Henry Jennings, and more. Hornigle and Jennings apparently hated each other, and they were both the proclaimed leaders of the Republic of Pirates. And on a separate note, Blackbeard literally set his hair on fire just to make people be afraid of him because he actually disliked killing people, which really contrasts with how he's viewed in the present. Some people would think that's an moment, but it's a pretty normal thing not to like killing people, so I guess good on Blackbeard for not being a completely evil person. They made up the notorious Flying Gang. Over 1,000 pirates made up the Flying Gang and resided in Nassau. This group, even though they were, pirates, strictly followed a set code of things like honesty and fairness. Initially, the pirates avoided attacking British ships, but most pirates would almost never turn down an opportunity to plunder, so it really became meaningless very soon. Which the British Empire noticed this pretty quickly and started offering pardons to any pirate to try to stop the chaos, which actually worked to an extent. Pirates were getting pardons, which obviously caused instability in the Flying Gang, and the horribly hilarious case of when literally everyone in Blackbeard's crew contracted syphilis, from a source I'm unaware of. So he went to Charleston just to get medicine, which put pirates of the British Empire's radar to a larger extent. The British responded to this with a naval blockade and offered pardons that demanded they give all of their riches to the crown and return to Britain. Hornigle ended up taking the pardon and becoming a literal pirate hunter, which put the Flying Gang into near complete disarray. Hornigle ended up finding nearly a dozen pirates over time and turned them over to the British to be executed. One of the members of the Flying Gang that was blocked by the naval blockade happened to be Charles Vane, and he decided to set his entire ship on fire and ram it into the blockade, which this was a mostly peaceful escape. Just kidding, they landed on an island and Blackbeard was pretty done with this stuff already, so he fled to Carolina to settle down. The Flying Gang was dead, and so was essentially everyone who was ever in it. Hornigle died in a shipwreck due to a hurricane. Charles Vane was stuck on an island and the British captured him, and I think you know what happened next. Stede Bonnet was captured after a very bloody battle with a small British naval fleet and later hanged, even though the public strangely was loudly protesting against his execution. 3 other important pirates who had escaped the blockade and continued being pirates for some more years, but then a large portion of them and the crew got super drunk on the same night that a British ship went hunting for a pirate ship to obliterate, and obviously they got obliterated. 2 out of the 3 important pirates happened to be women and also happened to be pregnant, so they were given a temporary pardon. Obviously, you're not going to execute an infant. Thank God we don't do that, right guys? And the male pirate was executed. But it is believed that one of the women escaped prison. Theories vary on how she did. The other one died in prison, but she gave birth to the child before that. Black Bart Roberts, who was apparently the richest pirate of all time, ended up getting stabbed to death somewhere near the African coast by a crazy Welsh guy. The 1730s marked the time when piracy was almost entirely dead. Piracy didn't see as long as a golden age as the outlaws in the American West did, but this time inspired various movies, books, shows and other forms of entertainment which were bound to be butchered by filmmakers, so there's a lot of misconceptions on what this time was actually like, which it's the same with basically anything that's inspired filmmakers with the exception of a few historical masterpieces like 1917, Full Metal Jacket, and quite a few movies about the American Civil War. Anyway, to finish the video, I'll clear up some of the misconceptions about this area. Pirates didn't wear eye patches because they were missing an eye. They did it to adjust their eye to the dark so it wouldn't be so jarring once they walked into the interior of their ship. They didn't at all talk like they're portrayed in movies and such. They just sounded like normal British people from the 1700s, which is somehow more incoherent than the movies. Pirates did not have maps that lead to their riches. That's stupid. Now I know this one isn't really as common as the other ones, but pirates weren't as commonly homosexual or bisexual as a lot of people say. They were almost always heterosexual. But that's not to say that there weren't a good amount of pretty gay pirates. I really don't understand why people keep pointing at famous groups of people from hundreds of years ago and saying that they were commonly gay. First off, who cares? Second, a lot of times it barely has any facts behind it. But I will say that when someone says that the ancient Greeks were almost always gay, that usually has a lot of truth to it, because it wasn't that uncommon to be bisexual in ancient Greece. Sorry for going on a different topic. Anyway, planks are also a myth, and one of the most common misconceptions is that it was some glorious life. It wasn't at all. Pirates would commonly catch disease while at sea and live in horrendous conditions, not to mention it was possible that they'd die at any given day from some attack from either some other pirates or an imperial ship, usually by the British, French, Dutch, or Spanish. Another thing I think should be brought up is that piracy wasn't at all limited to the Caribbean. Pirates covered the Mediterranean Sea, Indian Ocean, the West African coast, and even the Atlantic seaboard. Pirates still exist today, but not near to the extent they did in the early 1700s. Most piracy happens near Nigeria, Somalia, Indonesia, and off the Caribbean and Pacific coast of South America. And these pirates are very weak. They tend to just be around 4 to 12 people in small boats that will come out of nowhere and will usually only attack civilian ships and